My name's Chris. I'm marketing manager for Planetar. This is Ali. He's the, communication and marketing coordinator, I believe is your official title. And we work, with Planetar and iGUIDE to help promote iGUIDE and make sure people know it's awesome. And today we're going to be talking about essentially optimizing your website. And by optimizing is a very vague term. So what I mean by that is making your website do what it's supposed to do and do work kind of like for you. Websites are meant to be more sophisticated than a sales brochure, but kind of get across the same idea. They're meant to provide people with information so they can make decisions about hiring you or not. And there are some really easy things you can do to make your website, better. And we're going to go through those today. There's maybe like 5 to 10 things, somewhere in that range, and we'll get through as many as we can. We're going to probably talk for about 30-35 minutes. And then after that, you can just ask any questions you want. We'll probably answer questions as we go because we're cool like that. But put the questions in the chat and use the question, what do you call it? Thing in Zoom, whatever that's called. And we'll definitely get to them at the end if you do that. So yeah, talk for 30 minutes, then we'll do some questions, and then we're done. And then it's basically the weekend, right? Is that how that works? You're nodding. I'm going to take that as a yes.
The only thing we're all waiting for.
Yeah. All right, cool. Number one on our list of things to make your website better. Oh, sorry, I missed something. Okay, so let me bring it home before we go into the number one. I got too excited. Why do you want to optimize your website? I'm sure you already know, but I'm going to say it, out loud so that everyone is on the same page. You want to optimize your website to make it effective because it helps you sell your services and it helps you connect with prospective buyers who might want to hire you, clients, if you will. And it basically in today's day and age, sound like an old guy, is like your main selling tool. Like we're still in COVID times. Like you're not handing out brochures typically. Maybe you are, I don't know, but I don't think a lot of people are doing that right now. There's not a lot of door-to-door stuff. And what I mean by that is I'll use an example from real estate because it's easy. You're probably not, walking into a brokerage necessarily and talking to the secretary and saying, hey, I've got something to show you. I mean, you can still totally do that, but might be a little weird under COVID. So your website is really the main way people are going to find and interact with you online. And there's lots of different ways they can do that, but we're going to go through some of those ways by kind of talking about sort of tips, things you can do that are fairly easy to make your website better so that it's better at connecting you with prospective clients and getting them to essentially like pay you for stuff, which is, always fun. All right. Now with that out of the way, now number one. So on a website, there is, this might be old hat to a lot of people, but some people don't know this. And here's a great example, something called a call to action. So tip number one is make your call to action buttons or links or whatever they are, usually some kind of button, make them real bright and huge and obvious and contrasty. Okay, so here's an example. You guys can still see my screen, right? Ali? I think it says I'm sharing. Yes, that's okay, good. There was the last webinar I talked for like 6 minutes and the screen wasn't shared. And I'm like, look here and look over here. No one could see it. Anyway, okay, good. So I'll just go back. So we've got a learn more button and a buy button. And that's not necessarily the greatest thing to do, having two buttons. So you want one big button, ideally, sometimes two. Apple does too, that's why we do it. And you want it to be really bright and really contrast. You can see we've got like a really bright orange, which is kind of our call to action color, on this green of this image here. And so it's really obvious, I hope, what you're supposed to do here, which is click on one of these buttons. The idea is that if you don't provide people with a really obvious thing to click on, they're just going to bounce. We could talk about bounce rates in another webinar, but people show up, they want to understand what it is you do, and they want to be able to click on something that will get them where they want to go immediately with zero effort, essentially. So having a clear call to action is critical. So it's almost always a button, but it can be like an icon, or it could be an image that's like an icon. You can look around for different examples. And now that I've said this, you're going to go to popular websites and you're going to see that that's exactly what they do. Every time there's a product or something for sale, you're going to see that there's a really obvious thing you click on that sends you where you need to go. Now, here's a fun fact for you. Do you see how this slider has a call to action, but this one does not? That is on purpose, because there is a call to action up here that says find a photographer. So at Plantar, we don't sell iGuides directly. We do to you guys, but we don't sell them to real estate professionals or anyone else. We sell the technology to create them. So that's not this. This is meant to be an example to show you what you're supposed to be looking for. Anyway, just a fun fact. So the one other thing I want to mention about a call to action is that it needs to be, it doesn't need to be, it should be what's called above the fold. So that just means that when it loads, it needs to be visible on the screen without someone having to scroll. You know what I mean? So above the fold refers to like a newspaper when it's folded. Like anything above the fold is the first thing people will see when it's like in the newspaper machine. Do those still even exist? Probably not. I don't know. But if it's there, then you're guaranteed that anyone who shows up to your site is at least going to see it. They might not click on it, but they're definitely going to see it. So it's not good enough just to have a really bright call to action. It needs to be, up at the top of the page. So they don't have to scroll. Now, that being said, you're not done once you put it there. It's a good idea. And I'll go to the insurance restoration page because it's got tons of them. It's a good idea to put in a few, because what happens is I see my calls to action here, and I want to click on them, but I'm going to get more information. So I'm going to scroll. But once I've gone past the first ones, then essentially you need more. You need to pepper the page with them, or they need to be relevant to the content. You can't just slap them in there. Actually, I guess you could, but you probably shouldn't. The things you need to click on should be sending people where it is you want them to go. So that's going to vary depending on your particular needs, if you will, in your sales funnel. For most of you, it's going to be like, here's a service that I offer. I'll just randomly pick one. Twilight photography, we'll say, and then it'll have a button to say learn more, and it essentially moves them further down that sales funnel. It will learn them. It'll show them more information, perhaps, or maybe take them to a subpage. But that subpage is going to send them to buy, to an order form showing them the price or whatever. But you can see, I keep going. Here's another one: book a demo, learn more. Here's another one: learn more. Like, we've got lots of calls to action. It doesn't end with just the one at the top. And then to spice it up, we change the color. We got a blue one here. It's pretty cool. We got an orange one over here with an outline. It's pretty neat. I mean, you want consistency, but also you want them to look a little bit interesting. Otherwise it gets kind of dull. Okay. Do you have anything to say about calls to action, Ali?
No, you pretty much covered it. So the only thing I do want to mention is that, the only purpose of anyone going to your page is to convert. And to do that, you need a good call to action. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to be on your page. So whether that be a phone number, a click here to book a meeting, or if you're selling an ebook, whatever it is, that is the main reason you want someone on there. So think of it this way: your entire funnel comes down to one thing: your call to action at the bottom, and that's it. So
yeah, that's a good point. And there's a lot of different types of ways to measure conversion. So at iGUIDE, it's a little weird because we have a lot of different people who we're trying to educate. But yeah, it can be book a demo, it can be learn more, it can be buy, just straight up buy, and it takes you to a store or something like that. Yeah. Sign up, free trial, start now.
Right.
Okay. So moving on. The next thing.
So I do want to talk about the next thing would be clear identity and branding. So pretty much having, in this case, having someone come to your landing page, the first thing they would probably want to look at is who you are, your about page. Your about page should pretty much consist a small summary, not too much in detail, about who you are, what your values are, your branding. It should convey everything in one go. So basically, the person can actually relate and it doesn't bounce right off. So that's one thing you want to avoid, is if someone's coming to your page and they're looking at your about page, make sure that it's captivating enough that it keeps them for at least a solid minute. So think of it this way: like if I were to be on your website and if I were to bounce off the next 2 seconds, that really drastically affects your SEO. That basically tells Google that, or any search engine, that you're not valuable enough because people are coming in and they're bouncing off. So make sure your branding is on point, make sure it's captivating, make sure the copy is strong, and get a good copywriter if you can write good copy. That's my suggestion, because a good copywriter will know what to write, how to keep the audience on your page, whether this be on your ads, your page, your branding page, whatever it is. Make sure it captures their attention and keeps them on for long enough before they bounce off. It's a very short, quick tip, but that's the tip I'll probably give you. Number one is make sure your branding page is on point.
I have something to add to that as well, if you don't mind.
Sorry?
So I have something to add as well. I didn't want to.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did by accident. Okay, cool. So it's kind of interesting when you're a person who is getting a new client and you're going to meet them for the first time on site. You know what I mean? Like they're hiring you to go capture data for an iGUIDE, and they don't know who you are. And I appreciate this. I look this up all the time when I'm going to hire someone. They like to know who you are and kind of what you're about before they hire you. It's a big confidence builder. I think it helps people convert. I'm sure there's studies and data on this. I don't know. You guys can tell me if I'm wrong. But if you're a home inspector, insurance adjuster, real estate photographer, or plumber, I mean, anything. When you show up, people want to know that you're going to represent them well. So in real estate, it's a big deal, right? Because it's all about image and branding in some cases. So your about page, it really shows them who you are, what you look like, which is very superficial, but what are you going to do, right? It's also an opportunity to, take some really great headshots, slap them on there, use them for LinkedIn, but, it makes you look professional and people respect that. I often go to websites, it doesn't matter what they are, whatever they are. And I'll if I'm considering spending money with this company, I'll want to go to that about page and look and see who they are right away. Cause it tells you a lot about a company when you go there, who's involved, who am I talking to? And there's really funny, consequences to doing that. So you could call a company and you don't know how big or small a company is, right? Sometimes when you're on the internet makes everything look really important sometimes, but it's not. And some things that don't look important are. And you can go and book a demo with a company and just happen to get on, it might be a startup, you can't tell. You might get on a call with the CEO or something. You wouldn't know, but if you go to the about page, you're like, oh, I see you're on the about page. You're like the founder. And they go, oh yeah. Because sometimes startups do that. You'll have a founder who really is part of the whole process. That's kind of fun. Anyway, yeah, branding and identity. So that means kind of letting people know who you are and what it is you're all about, so they feel confident when they're hiring you. Helps with conversion. All right. The next thing, I'll start this one off. It's going to be about load times. It's a little dry, but it's really, really important. Okay. So, and because I know a lot of you are photographers. So when you're a photographer, you tend to take really amazing photos. That happens sometimes. And when you do that, you're tempted to slap them on your webpage in their full, glorious, magnificent resolution. And I've made this mistake so many times. And when you do that, you take the page load times and you jack them way up too high. So the page will load very slowly because the images are very large. And it seems like a good idea when you're doing it, because when you add the image to the web page and maybe you're working on it, maybe you have someone doing it for you. If you have someone doing it for you, they should tell you not to do that, but whatever. What'll happen is it will cache on your computer. So when you load your website, it's fast, looks awesome. So you already have the image on your computer. But when someone else loads it, it's like a month of Sundays to get that front page up, and people will just bounce. And to Ali's point, you don't want people going to your website and then just immediately leaving for whatever reason, doesn't matter what. But that's one reason why people do. They'll go to your website, they're waiting for it to load, they're looking at their watch. Honestly, it's seconds. That's too much on the internet in 2021 for people. They can't handle it. So
with the 5G coming out now, it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts it, because people are going to be more impatient than ever before.
Yeah, I'm already pretty impatient, so I don't know if I could get more impatient, but I'm bad. I'm just outraged when a page takes 3 seconds to load.
It's for also just to give you guys
wait. That's crazy.
just to give you guys an idea how fast 5G is going to be, I remember I was having a discussion with one of a technician regarding this. He said if the current internet we have is basically like a tap of water, like basically a water tap, so water is dripping down. 5G is like Niagara Falls, so you can't compare it. It's a huge jump, and anything like I'm going to see a lot of people change over time to. If you think we were impatient now, this generation was impatient, wait till what happens next, because we're going to be basically sweeping the internet with the speed we're going to get.
I am just so excited about that. I'm still on 3G, so there you go. That's embarrassing. I just told everybody. So, okay, load times. What do you do about it? How do you make your website fast? There are lots of tools out there you can use to have your website like measured. And what they will do is they will, I'll actually load up one for you real quick. They will tell you what you need to fix. You don't really need to do much of anything except follow the directions. Now, in all likelihood, some of the stuff that they're going to tell you will be very technical. And so that's, there's only so much you can do there. You might have to hand off a lot of that stuff to a web developer, but there's a lot of stuff you can just do on your own because it has a lot to do with the images and the media on your site. Like most of it is the media on your site. So if you upload, let's say, I don't know, a front page image that's 5 megabytes, that's nuts. That takes forever to load, like 10 seconds plus, but it's even worse on a bad internet connection. So if you use this tool, this is my favorite one. It's called GT Metrics, and you put your website in here, it will do a little thing where there's little progress bars. It looks very fancy, and it will tell you what is slow on your site, but it'll highlight the images and it'll say, hey, this image is, I don't know, 5 megabytes. You should probably try shrinking it. And so that gives you it'll just go through the whole site if you let it, and it'll do whatever you want, or it'll tell you which ones you need to change. And the images themselves is super funny. If you take a really big image and you want to make it smaller, you guys probably already know this, but I'll just tell you. You either shrink the image's size, like as in its physical resolution, the number of pixels required. That's not always possible because you're doing something specific with it. So it's that size for a reason, but if you can shrink it. There are occasions where you'll upload an image to a website builder piece of software, and it will take it and it will scale that image down, but still load it in full resolution. It shouldn't do that in 2021, but it still happens. So whatever. But you can change the resolution, but often it's the compression settings that you're using. So off the top of my head, I don't remember how Lightroom works. I think JPEG compression's out of 10, but for some reason with Photoshop, it's out of 12. I don't know why. So when you're choosing JPEG compression settings, don't have it be met. This is a good tip for just every JPEG you make. Don't have it be at full. There's no reason. You won't see any difference. Lower it to like 6 or 8. And you might see a difference if you like really zoom in, but it makes the file sizes like a fraction of what they would be if the quality was set higher. So you can just take an image most of the time, change the compression settings, resave it. It'll look identical. You won't be able to see a difference, and it'll be super small compared to the previous version, and your load times will go right through the roof. It's awesome.
Yeah, I just like basically use a tool online called Image Compressor. That's easy. Upload it, compresses it for you. You download it. It's legit, like you said, a fraction of the size.
There used to be or I suppose there still is. Google used to make a version of this type of thing. It was like an SEO tool to scan your site, and it would automatically compress the images for you. And you could just download them right from the tool. I don't know. You guys will have to Google it.
Cool. That's actually very handy.
Yeah, it was really neat. Actually, some websites have it built in too. So we use a certain plugin that has just this optimization button in it when we're doing our weird graphics and stuff. And sometimes you put an image in and it could be better. Like you do your best when you make it, but when you load it in, it'll say, hey, you could shrink this by 20%. Do you want to do it? You say, yeah, absolutely. And it just does it for you. It's cool. All right. Load times. There's a few other things with regards to load times. But the main one is images, I'll be honest with you. The other one is just quantity of stuff. So if you heap everything that you've got on one page, and there's some reasons why you might want to do that. You're gonna make your load times go up a little bit because you have a lot of stuff on one page, and not all pages are optimized to load everything. I don't know, like in order, or lazy load it is sometimes what it's called. So it's not loaded right away. Someone has to either click or scroll down to see it. If you have your page set up that way, you have to work a little harder. So I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but you can have a whole website on one page, and then when you click links, it just sends you to other parts of the page sometimes. And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just saying like do that if you have a good reason to do that. So if you have stuff on multiple pages, they tend to load quite quickly, you know. And then if you have one page that doesn't load quickly, you can isolate it, fix it. The other thing I will say for load times is that there's a zillion things, especially if you use this tool, that you can do to improve load times, but they're heavily dependent on the actual framework of the website that you're using, you know, like WordPress or Wix or whatever. So you'll have to investigate that on their own. But often they're going to do a few things. I'll just mention a few terms so you guys are familiar. So there's a CDN, which is a content delivery network. And that's just a way of basically sending the content from your web page elsewhere so that it can load faster on different machines in different parts of the world or whatever. And that's, you can get that service if you want. There's a whole bunch of different sort of like plugins and things you can get that will optimize your page so that it loads correctly and doesn't load too much JavaScript and all that kind of stuff. So feel free to do all that stuff if you're comfortable, but the images is the big one. All right, cool. Moving on. We're going to run out of time. We've only done like 3.
So next thing I want to kind of touch upon is I personally believe, Chris, you agree as well, and it has been proven that including a video is so important. One, because it kind of Facebook, I mean, Google likes that when you include let's say a video too. Let's say, for example, if you have a page about testimonials, you know, include a video on there. It just, you know, makes it more, pushes the narrative more, as well as it's great for your SEO optimization. But at the same time, you can use tags to tag that video. So if anyone, let's say, is searching for a certain word online on Google, and that word comes up, it'll show up as a video on the video section. So that's a great way of getting traffic on there. But as well as, you know, people generally respond much better to content that is in animation or motion. So for example, bright images, animated content, or simple videos, because that keeps their attention a lot more. So think about it this way. Every time you go to a website, and you've probably done this yourself, and you see some kind of video on there, and let's say you watch the first 2 minutes, that's you basically being on that website for 2 minutes. That is forever in SEO land. That is a lot of time. So the fact that somebody's uploading videos on there, people are watching it, that kind of tells Google that, hey, this website's kind of relevant. Maybe we should push it a bit up more to the ranks. So always include a video, regardless, have like a sales video letter, for example, on the first page, showing who you guys are all about, having a short introduction, keeps people's attention on the page, as well as kind of reinforces your brand image and your professionalism. So do that, and then obviously you can have your about page with whatever copywriting you want below. But I personally believe that having a video is great for reinforcing your expertise in the market in whatever context that might be.
Yeah.
The next one, Chris, you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, I don't. I changed our order up a little bit because we're going to run out of time. So this is going to lead us right into SEO because people might not have any idea what we're talking about. So we'll just go for it. So SEO, yeah, that's the next one. So you really want to optimize your website so that people can like find you essentially. But it's more than that. So so the way SEO works, so SEO stands for search engine optimization. What it means is that when people have something they're looking for, they're going to find it. And your website can take advantage of the systems used to allow them to do that. So that's a fancy way of saying people go to Google, they put in real estate photographer Portland and hit enter. Oh no, you know what, it'd be best real estate photographer Portland, hit enter. And then change out the location with wherever. So what'll happen is that Google says, oh, I see what you're looking for. So they have a problem. They are looking for a real estate photographer, and the solution is they need to find one. And so Google tries to do its best to solve their problem. And optimizing your website for search almost always means, just at a basic level, making sure that the keywords that people are searching for are in your website, so that Google can really easily say, okay, this person's looking for real estate photographer Portland. This website says real estate photographer Portland. Okay, perfect, put them together. And you can see that directly reflected in a Google search when you search for something. So the better the match, the higher it will appear on the search results page. So if I search for best photographer Portland, And then the search results page comes up, I'm going to get a list. I mean, everyone knows how Google works, but a list of stuff. And it's a combination of relevance, but also optimization. So what I mean by that is, I mean, it doesn't matter, so if I search for real estate photographer Portland, I'm not going to get chiropractors because Google's not stupid. It's like, well, okay, you want real estate photographers. So if I'm a chiropractor, there's no way I can optimize my site so that you find me, but I don't want you to find me anyway. What I mean by that is a lot of people think of SEO as a way to game the system. It's not like that. And Google's too smart for that now, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know. It's more of a way to make sure that the right people find you. So the way you do that is by making sure that you clearly meet the needs of their search. So when people search, they have what's called search intent. They're looking for something. So if it's clear that you provide what they're looking for, Google figures it out and they go, okay, cool. And the way they do that is by doing a few things. So we already touched on a few of them. So keywords I mentioned, that's the big one. You want to make sure that your website has the proper keywords. Real estate photography is going to be the most obvious. Your location is going to be pretty obvious because that's how people search. And that's the best way to think of keywords. There are like a zillion tools and people. Obviously, there's people who work in this industry that can help you really take advantage of search and make sure that people find you when they're looking for you. So I won't go into too much detail because we're running out of time. But for the most part, think about people's search intent. What are they looking for and how do you get them to find you? And you're golden. There's also software tools you can get, like what do we use? Yoast or something. There's a few different ones and they're all going to have their tips and tricks or whatever on how to optimize your keywords. Okay. SEO is more than just keywords though. It's load times, which we already talked about. So Ali mentioned this. If load times are low, they're fast rather, Google likes that. It says, okay, cool. That's, if it has to choose between two web pages where the keywords are very similar, it's going to choose the faster one. It's going to reward you for that. And we had already talked about video. If Google sees that you have a page that has video on it, and then there's another page that doesn't, it's going to say, okay, cool. Well, this one has video, and it's going to give that one a boost. You're going to get preferential treatment. And all I mean by that is in a list from top to bottom, optimizing for SEO will push you up that list. And that's really critical. So do you remember what we talked about earlier about above the fold and below the fold? So when someone's searching, it's the same rules apply. If you search for real estate photography Portland, what are the odds that you're going to go through the top, well, I don't know how many appear on page 5 or 10, and you're going to click to the next page? They're real low. So if you're not on that front page, you are out of luck most of the time, not all the time.
I just want to add something really funny there.
Go for it.
I know we're going to run out of time, but it's real quick.
Oh,
Remember I read the quote once, the best place to hide a dead body is at the second page of Google search. No one goes there. It's
That's
legit.
unfortunately true. That's so
yeah.
true.
Because if you're not on the first page, you're pretty much dead compared to website traffic.
And it's even worse than that too, because what you'll have is you'll have people who will run ads. Like Google knows what they're doing. They want to make money. So they'll have people run ads on search terms. So even if you're number one, you're still not at the top sometimes. You're still down 3 or 4 because people are running ads. Bigger companies are running ads on top of those keywords. So they come up first because they're paying, and then you come up afterward. But being front page is ideal. That's what you're aiming for. But we'd also talked about bounce rates. So if you don't have a clear call to action and your website's not compelling, it's not what people are looking for, that means your bounce rates go up. So let's suppose, so it's a weird mixture here. So I'll give you an example. Let's suppose your website is not particularly well optimized for what it is you actually do. So maybe, you do real estate photography, but you're kind of like, oh, it's a website for everything. So you put a lot of stuff on there about your side hustle, which is portraiture. Okay. So people are finding you for portraiture, but most of your website is about real estate photography. They're going to show up, they're going to look at it, and they're going to go, well, I don't want that. And then they're going to bounce. And that's going to send you back down the list, because the higher your bounce rate, as in the quicker people leave your site after going to it, the worse you score. So they're going to penalize you for that. So that means having a really obvious call to action, really well optimized keywords for search intent, and then have like your website look like what it is supposed to be, will help people when they show up to not leave quickly, because they're going to look at your site and go, oh, that's what I want. Okay. And there I can click on this button to learn more. Perfect. So they're going to engage and then they're not going to bounce. And then what else we got on here? Oh yeah. And then the last thing I'm going to mention, this is the hardest thing to do for SEO, and then we'll move on. SEO really is about, if you were just like going to ask me a question, Chris, what are the two most important things with SEO? The hardest things, I'd say, unfortunately, because load times is easy. You can get that in like a day. But it's keywords, optimizing for keywords, because you have to think a lot about what it is you do and what it is you want people to find you for. And also backlinks. So if you don't know, backlink is when someone else on the internet links to your site. And you want backlinks so that when people are searching, they find you, because Google rewards you for having a lot of backlinks. So it's a big deal. So what that means is, let's suppose I'm featured in an article on some website, maybe Architecture and Engineering Digest posts an article and they mention my product or my service and they link to me. Well, that's a good backlink. Like they have a lot of SEO power. So they have quite a high rating. Google thinks they're great. So then I get some of their power by having them link to me. It makes sense. It's like a referral program, right? I'm saying that this is legit. And so Google says, well, if they think it's good enough to link to, let's give them a little boost. But building backlinks sucks. It's a pain in the butt.
Oh, I just want to add up there as well that, like you said, it's extremely important that the backlink is going to and coming from a legitimate site. Yes. So there used to be a time where before the latest Google update, people would make fake websites and backlink each other just to boost their SEO. Google picked up on that and they banned it for their latest update. Now, if you're backlinking from let's say a little shady site, that actually impacts your SEO in a bad way. So if you're backlinking to, let's say, a pretty much good site, but you're doing it a lot, that also impacts you badly. So you want to make sure you're doing it in a good amount of number, not too high, not too low, but you got to make sure that you're also getting a lot of backlinks from other sites. So what I've noticed that a lot of business owners, they buy shout outs from these big websites, and these big websites basically backlink to them. And that's a way of boosting your SEO. Not the best way, but it still works.
Yeah, it's true. We could do a whole thing about backlinks. They're fascinating because you can get backlinks that are super high quality. They're like .gov, .org ones that'll outweigh like thousands of substandard ones from random companies. Either way, it's almost always a good sign when you get a backlink, because it's usually a mention in the media, something like that. That's where most of them come from for the most part, right? Like I'll give you an example. Like in your local area, there's an entrepreneur kind of award and you win it. You're featured in an article and it goes up on the local newspaper and they have a website, and that's good. That's a good backlink. Nothing wrong with that. Farming for backlinks. Oh yeah,
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, farming for backlinks and like working to get more backlinks is more of like an advanced thing, and it's not super critical right away. That's for me. What were you going to say?
I also just want to add one thing before the next topic, and this is regarding keywords. I did want to talk about that. When we talk about optimization, you're actually most of the time competing for the same keyword as someone else. This is very important to know because let's say you're a real estate photographer and you optimize your site for real estate photography. Well, chances are someone else is doing the same thing. So you're competing with that same word. Now, what the best thing to do in this case is get a software. I would say, let's say semrush.com, and it's a paid membership, pretty cheap. You basically, they track your SEO and they say, hey, these are the best links and these are the best kind of words that might work for you. And this is a chart of other words that other people are comparing to or competing against. So if you want, you can actually use that website, pick and choose the best keywords that are working for you and are also least competitive. That way, at least you have a fighting chance to get to number one. Because think about it, like if someone's been like using that same keyword for the last few years versus you that just came on 2 months ago, it's going to be really hard for you to rank number one on that word because you have 2 years of catching up to do. So it's always good to kind of find the keyword that works best for you and that's least competitive.
What was the tool you said? Was it SEMrush?
Yeah, there's SEMrush.
I think Amir just asked for you to put the link into the thing.
I can type that down. 1 second.
Yeah, cool. Here, I'll talk like that. Okay, so backlinks. So I'll give you guys the scoop. You can link to iGUIDE all day long. Please do. No complaints there. Obviously, if you're working with iGUIDEs, it's a good idea to link to us. I'm just kind of answering your question, sort of, Amir, as well. It's a good idea to link to us because we have resources that you might want people to see. But you don't typically want to take them off page unless there's a good reason. So I appreciate it if you link to us, but it may not be in your best interests all the time, which we'll get to our last point at the very end, which will relate to this. But we can link to you and get you some SEO mojo. The only way we do that is through what's called a success story. So if we profile you, actually, I can even show you guys. Does that work? No, it didn't work. Hold on. Success stories. There you go. So if you get a call, if you get the call or a success story, it's just Ali. He just calls you up. But basically, if you have a really successful story to tell with regards to iGUIDE, and we want to feature that, so we put it on our website and we'll link to you. We'll obviously, we're promoting you, and then we link back to you so you can get backlinks from us. So we can't just willy-nilly like add you to our website in terms of backlinks, but there is a way for us to give you backlinks through this success story program. So if Ali calls you up or sends you an email about success stories, say yes, because it's good for reasons. Okay, so we're almost running out of time, so I'm going to hurry this up. What else we got here? The next thing we're going to talk about is, okay, we've got 3 things left to talk about. One of them I skipped for some reason, analytics. If you don't have analytics hooked up, just do it. That's all I'm going to really say about that. But analytics is critical, because without looking at how many people are coming to your website, what your bounce rates are, and really getting to grips with just the really basic statistics of your website, you'll have no idea if your website is performing well. It's just like iGUIDE. So a lot of people buy an iGUIDE, like, a real estate professional or whoever's purchasing the iGUIDE to use will buy it, and then they won't really use it effectively. They don't see a lot of value in it. If they don't see value in it, it's not working for them. They need to know why, right? And the why is funny. It's almost always the same. It's because they're not sharing it correctly. So, so to answer your question, success story is a written article that sometimes includes video. We prefer it to include video, but it doesn't always have to include video. But it's we'll usually reach out and we'll say, hey, we noticed you shot 400 iGUIDEs in one day. What's happening or something? There's some kind of story. So if you're going to do like a weird giant project, or you think you've got some kind of story, what's a good example of a story, Ali, that we would want to tell? Kind of blanking out. Did you hear me? Are you muted?
Sorry about that. Yes, completely agree. 1 second.
So I was just asking, like, what's a good idea for a success story that we would?
So for a success story, basically, what I would say would be how, if you're currently working, let's say, with a 3D technology camera, and you buy iGUIDE, something happens. Let's say you get a lot more, sales. iGUIDE boosted your business by so much %, or for some reason you're able to provide a certain type of service that you weren't able to before, and that helps you with your branding. That would be a good success story. One would be like, for example, there's no one else offering iGUIDE in your specific market or city. You're the only one, and now you're the go-to guy for iGUIDE. That's a big win, because no one else is going to do that. No one else is going to come take that away unless they actually buy an iGUIDE. So that's one. Another one could be like how iGUIDE changed your business overall.
How it changed your life,
Yeah.
It's really dramatic. All right, cool. We're running out of time. Let's move on real quick. Okay, so I'll go back to analytics for a second. So it doesn't matter what you do to your website. If you're not measuring it, you won't know if you've succeeded or not. So if you haven't set up Google Analytics, do it right now, right after this. And then everything else you do going forward will make sense. And then one last sort of SEO thing. It's like a hot tip, more or less. A lot of people, what happens is when they create their website, they're so excited about getting everything set up visually that they tend to be, and I'm guilty of this too, so I feel like I'm allowed to say it, they're very sloppy with the pictures that they make. So typically when we're naming images, we don't go out of our way to like make them make sense, right? They're like 3PC2, they have a bunch of numbers on it, DSC_005 or whatever. Okay, so every time you put an image on your website, or you give an image to someone to put on your website, you have to, or you should rather, I sound like Dr. Phil, you need to make sure they're properly named according to the content that is in the image, because people search by images. So let's suppose that I take an image of my self shooting an iGUIDE on site at a hotel, or I don't know, whatever. But the image name is like 33C_-DX5 or whatever. If someone's searching for hotel, photographer, location, anything, that image will not come up, because why would it? The name is nonsense. So if you name your images so that they reflect the actual content, then people will just straight up find your images. And sometimes if you can't make the front page on a for your website, you'll still come up in the image search, which is pretty cool. So it's another kind of way to get around that, which is kind of neat. Okay, that's more like a hot tip, because if you don't do that, it's not the end of the world, but you totally should. And then also there's something called alt tags on images. They're like little identification tags. And if you use that tool I mentioned earlier, GTmetrix, they're going to call that out, that you don't have any alt tags in any of your images. You have to put them all in, but it's good. Again, it's for people searching for images so they can find. Either way, okay. Last thing, Ellie, we're going to talk about is we're going to bring it home in terms of what you should do to make your website better and optimize it and make it do what it's supposed to do. And that is to make sure your website has a clear goal, a clear purpose in life. I know it's not alive, but that purpose is almost always, we're going to say to convert, that's what we would say, but it's really to get people to buy, to hire you for something, usually, hopefully shooting an iGUIDE, but it can be any of your services. So it's very tempting when you create a website to just go through the standard things. You've got your front page, it's got some examples, you've got a gallery, it's got some stuff in it. Every single page you have should be designed to send people somewhere to do something, or be set up or designed or optimized so that it helps with the end goal. So it's very common when people have their website set up that they kind of create an about page and they just let it sit there, and it's got enough on there to get the job done. But really, what is an about page for? Well, it's so people can see you, maybe, and they can get an idea of what your business is, and they can feel confident so that they can go make a purchase decision. So if your about page doesn't do that, then you need to make it do that. So that's what I'm talking about when I say has a clear goal. Like every single subpage or page needs to move people, what we would say, just down the funnel, down your sales funnel. So it's not enough to just get them there and give them a price list. You got to get them there, and you have to sort of like use everything at your disposal to get them down that funnel to buy. So I'll give you a few examples of missteps that people often make. Often they will create a gallery and just toss tons of stuff in there. Don't do that. That's a huge mistake. It sounds like a good idea. You're like, oh, I want my website to have tons of content. No, you don't. Okay, because it kills your load times, makes it load slower. And if you put in, 15 demos of, say, houses you shot, but your real goal is you're marketing to hotel managers, well, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it's not working toward your goal. You're just showing everybody what you've done, not what you want to do. It's a common thing for portfolios. Sorry, I'm just going to yap for ages. It's a very common problem with portfolios where people will put the work that they've done and they won't craft their portfolio to cater to what they want to do. So if you really want to be a portrait photographer, you don't show up to an interview with a giant portfolio full of real estate photography. That doesn't make any sense. So your website, same thing. You have to make sure that all your demos make sense for what you're trying to achieve. And then everything should follow that general idea.
Right.
Sorry, you go.
So,
I'll stop talking.
Yeah. So basically, think about it this way: your website is your virtual salesman. That's the only thing it's meant for. It is basically there to push the person over to buy your service or your product. If it's not doing that, that means it's a pretty lousy salesperson, and you got to fire it and you get a new one. Ideally, yes. So in Chris's example, if you have a portfolio, don't fill it up with images, things you've done. Yeah, that might sound a good idea, but it's not really conveying a message. So when Amir asked a really good question is that my website has a lot of iGUIDE videos. Does that help or not? Yes or no. So if there's a purpose for the videos where it's showing what you can do and what your services are, yes. But if you've just uploaded a bunch of videos where there's no context to it and that's not really leading the person anywhere, it might damage your brand and your reputation, because you want to, in the end, make sure there's a purpose for the video, there's a purpose for the content, and it's all funneling down to a sale or a purchase or even a call. So think of it this way: basically, whatever you do, it's supposed to lead to a conversion, ideally. So that should be the purpose of your website.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to talk about some other stuff. And if you guys want to ask questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll adjust my microphone. All right. So I'm going to bring up a few other things that I mentioned already. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. You'll get notifications about all the masterclasses that we make and all the marketing videos that we make. And there's lots of really cool stuff coming. I know I say that every week, but I promise it's true. PFRE, Photography for Real Estate Conference. It's coming up. I encourage you to go investigate it because it's going to be awesome. Our Facebook group. Actually, you know what? I'll load it up on screen so you guys can see it. Please join it if you haven't. It's neat. We like it. It's fun. It's called the iGUIDE 3D Tour and Floor Plan Creators Group. Yeah, people go on there. They ask questions. I don't know the answers to some of them, but that's the whole point, right? There's going to be.
Can you add the link on here?
Chit chat. I think I can. Yeah, here. I'll put it in. I don't know if this will work, but yeah. I do believe I can. Does that work? All right, cool. Anyway, there you go. Facebook group. No excuses now. Go over there and join. And the last thing is that masterclass schedule that I mentioned earlier. If you missed a class, you can always go there. You can see which ones are coming up. It's new, and we're very excited because we weren't as prepared earlier last year. Now we have everything kind of sorted out. It's quite cool. Okay, I don't see any more questions. That means we're all done. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. I really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks a lot. And thank you, Ali, for participating as well. And have a great day, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Oh, actually, hold on. We got
You just said
one more question. Oh, thank you.
That's a good way to end it. All right, later, skaters.